There's one other feature in Dreamweaver I want to show you before we finish this chapter, and that's the Page Properties dialog. You can open that by clicking the button in the Properties Inspector at the bottom of the page, or by choosing Modify Page Properties. Page Properties lets you make changes that affect many things on the page. For example, you can change the font for everything on the page here. So in addition to being able to change the font just for one section of your page, you can make global changes here. So if I choose Arial Helvetica Sans Serif and I click Apply, you'll see instantly all of the text on this page changes to Arial. Similarly, I can change the default size. Now, this is only going to change the size of text that's in the default setting. So if I make this small and I click Apply, notice that it made this text smaller, and although it made the heading and the subhead smaller, it kept them relatively larger based on their heading 1 and heading 2 settings. You can also change the text color page-wide. And again, you see that's changed the heading and subhead. The links, however, are controlled by another setting, and we'll look at that in a moment in the links category. You can change the background color on the page. So we could make this a kind of a beige color if we wanted. Oh, that's a little bright. We could make it a softer color. Or, of course, you can leave it white if you prefer. These letters here on the right, by the way, are hexadecimal color codes. If you've never heard hexadecimal before, don't worry too much about it. They're actually 6-digit color codes, but Dreamweaver abbreviates them when it can. So sometimes you'll see 6 characters here, sometimes you'll only see 3, especially if it's color like white, which is really 6 Fs is what makes white in the hexadecimal color code system. You can also copy and paste hexadecimal color codes out of programs like Photoshop if you want to match a color specifically. And you can even lift colors off a page. So if I wanted to make this background color the same color as her pants, for example, I could click over there and you can lift any color from the page into that area. If you want to completely remove the color, just delete it. And when I click Apply now, you'll see it goes back to white, which is the default. If you want a background image, this is where you would insert that. Again, just browse to find the image, and that image will repeat across the page unless you specify another setting. Thanks to CSS, you can now much better control how background images appear on a page. So you can have them repeat across and down the page, just across, just down, or not repeat at all. This is a setting a lot of designers like to remove the margins. If you've ever noticed that there's an offset in most web browsers, about 8 pixels at the top and left of the page, if I set all of these to 0, I will remove that little offset and notice how the image jumps up and to the left just a little bit. That just gets rid of that little margin around the edge of the browser. If you like that extra space, leave it, but this will give you a little greater design control if you remove it. Now, you may have noticed here there's an Appearance CSS and there's an Appearance HTML. I highly recommend that you use the CSS options here in Page Properties. When you do that, Dreamweaver will automatically create the corresponding styles, and you don't even have to pay attention to CSS yet to use these. The other setting I want to make sure we look at here are the link settings. So again, you can change the font, or you can leave it the same as the page font, meaning this font for your links will be the same as whatever font is set as the default for the page. Or you can say, no, I really want my links to stand out. I want them to be a different font. Your choice. Again, you can change the size separate from other text on the page. And here's the thing that can be a little confusing to people who are new to setting link colors. There are actually 4 different colors related to links. And let me just explain how these work. The link color is the color your link will appear in when a visitor first comes to your page. So let's make this a red color, and you'll see right away that this changes here. So that's your main link color, or the state of a link that hasn't yet been visited. Now, you may have noticed that on many websites, if you've already visited a link and you come back to the page that link was on, the color changes. Now, this is an option. You don't have to change the color. You could select exactly the same color here so that it doesn't change, or you could choose a very different color so that your visitors can distinguish between links they've already seen and links they haven't. Now, this change, when I click Apply, is not going to have any effect on this page yet. because here I'm just viewing the page as it'll look when it first appears in a browser. You won't see that visited link color until you preview this page, click on the link, and then return to this page to see how it looked after you visited it. Rollover link color is a great trick for creating that rollover effect. So let's say I could use maybe a gold color that'll really pop when I roll my cursor over it. What this is going to do is change the color of this text in the moment that someone's rolling a cursor over it. Now, you used to actually have to use two images and create a rollover image to have links that changed when you rolled over them. Now, thanks to CSS and the ability to change these attributes, you can do that with just text, a much faster, much more efficient way to have links that change. And we'll use this a little more in a later chapter. The active link color is actually the color the link changes to in the moment that you're actually clicking on the link. That's a pretty subtle difference. Most people aren't going to click on a link for more than about a second. So a lot of people will just use the same color for the rollover and active links. But if you want to distinguish it at that point, you certainly can. The other thing you can do is change underlining. Many of us really don't like the underline in links. So you can simply say never underline, and if you see now that underline goes away, you'll still get that little hand. The cursor will still change when somebody rolls over the link, but at least you won't see the underline. It won't disrupt your text. Now, some people use this as sort of a compromise, show underline only on rollover. And that means that when someone rolls their cursor over it, not only will it change to this gold color, but the underline will also appear. And that can be useful because it provides a little confirmation to your visitors that yes, this really is a link. So let me click OK. And let's preview this. Again, Dreamweaver is going to ask me to save the page. Anytime you go to preview, you have to save your changes first. So Dreamweaver already knows, and the browser already knows, that we've been to that website, iStockPhoto.com. So instantly you see that that's grayed out because that's what our visited link color is. And when I roll over these, notice how they change to gold and the underline appears. And let me just Alt-Tab or Command-Tab and go back to Dreamweaver for a minute. And I just want to show you, we'll spend a lot more time on styles. But the settings that we just created did automatically create styles. So here's our link, our visited link, our hover, which is the rollover link, and active. So these are slightly different in the names and the styles here, but you can see what those four link states are. This is the basic link state. This is where the font change is recorded so that it applies to all four of those link states. The other changes we made, like the margin change and the font color and font face that we wanted to apply to the entire page, are saved in the body style. Again, we'll do a lot more with this in a later chapter, but I just wanted you to see what happens when you use CSS in page properties. And that concludes this chapter. I hope that helps you see just how easy it is to create a basic page in Dreamweaver and introduces you to some of the most important features as you design your web pages.